Okay, so welcome to everyone who is joining us for today's Reactor session. And today's session will be looking at Power BI Introduction, last year's sales report. So you're very welcome. Hope you enjoy the next hour with us. Please do feel free to get involved in the Q&A today. I'll be moderating that throughout the session. So any questions, even comments and feedback that you have, please just pop them into the Q&A. We'll make sure they're all responded to by the end of the session. As I mentioned, we have got 60 minutes for today, and that's inclusive of Q&A. So just to remind you of that, this session is also being recorded and it will go live. It will be uploaded onto the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel, usually within a couple of days, where you can re-watch it and go over any things that you may have missed. So I'll drop a link into our YouTube channel as well during the session. Just to quickly go over our code of conduct before we start today and get into the session. So on the screen, you should see in front of you our Microsoft code of conduct. It's really just a reminder for everyone today to be kind and considerate to one another. There will be different viewpoints, and we might see that coming through the Q&A. So just to be respectful, friendly, and aware of others throughout. So getting back to today's session, our speaker is Laura Graham-Brown, and Laura is a big contributor to the Microsoft Reactor community. Delighted to be welcoming her back today. So I will hand over to Laura to get us started.
Thank you, Emma. Okay, welcome to this Power BI introduction session. Okay, a very short part about me. I've been working with Microsoft products for way too long. From Excel to Access, Power BI, etc. You can find me on Twitter at LauraGB, and I also have a blog site, hatfulofdata.blog. I'm a Microsoft MVP, okay, which means that Microsoft let the people who do lots of contributions have access to talk to some of the product teams. So some of the things we get to see, we get to have a chat with them and give our feedback, etc. So let's move on to our session for today, and we're talking about Power BI introduction. So Power BI has 5 steps. So there is the get the data, get access to your data. I can't help you with that, apart from be very nice to all the people that own the data. DBAs, by kind of tradition, it feels like, are the grumpiest people in the world. So bear with you on that. Find out their favorite biscuits. Do whatever you need to do to get access to the data you need to get access to. They will be your best friends eventually. Then we're looking at transforming the data. We're not going to do much of that today, but a little bit of it. Then we're moving on to models, and we put in some relationships and some calculations and how those work. And then we get to the pretty part, the visualization. Let's make the charts, put cards and slicers and all those kind of things onto our report and make it pretty, and then we publish it. Okay, all of that you can do without a license. Okay, you just need to download Power BI Desktop until you get to wanting to share it. Okay, and then it will ask you for a publishing and sharing requires you to have a pro license. So that part is what you're going to need. If you have any questions, by the way, do please ask them as we go. I'm perfectly happy to pause and answer them. I'm perfectly happy to tell you that'll be answered in a moment. Just give me that's in the next demo. Okay. And we've got Emma does a fantastic job of keeping track of what questions are going on. So here's the 5 steps. They don't quite work like that. If I move on to my next slide, it works a little bit more like that. So the getting the data is, especially if you're in a large organization, it's hard work. Okay, we all feel your pain. Transforming and modeling, if you get that right, the visualizations is the easiest part, and publishing is just clicking a couple of buttons at the end. So the part to get right is to get the model and transform, get those parts right. Okay, and then you can move on to your visualization. Your publishing will be great. And I think I've got someone who Fernando, who I know, I'm pretty certain we know each other from Twitter as well. I'll say hi to him because he just said hi in chat. Right, okay. So before you start your report, way before you start, is to go for why are you bothering? Why are you doing this report? Okay, and come up with the questions you're trying to answer. So there is the title of this session was last year's sales, and I thought that was appropriate for the first one of the year because lots of people would have been done reporting on last year's figures. So the purpose of today's one is which products sold the most, so most quantity, how many things getting sold, what was the sales each month, and what was the profit margin, okay, across the year, across the products, across our shops. So that's what we're looking at. So there's enough of slides. Oh no, sorry, one more slide. The data today is in Excel. Now I realise lots of people, their data won't be coming from Excel, it'll be coming from other systems, but my purpose of putting it in Excel is I can give you all access to the data and I can give it as a downloadable file. We'll put it through Power Query and then we will pass it on to Power BI. So now we get the demo slide. Right, let me go. I have launched Power BI, but it's on a separate desktop. I just need to find that desktop. It's not that one. I seem to somehow have got 4 desktops. So here we are in Power BI. When it first pops up, it pops up with a yellow box on top of this all, which will give you lots and lots of links to various things in there. Have a look through some of those and have a look as to how they work. Okay, they give you lots of help. Microsoft gives lots and lots of fantastic tools out there to help you learn Power BI. If you type in Microsoft Learn Power BI, it will take you to a great site, into Bing or Google or any other search engine. So there's lots of things to look at in here, but it's not very interesting until we get some data. So I'm going to get some data. I've not got the right window open, so I'm just going to quickly open a window to show you where the data is. And I've put a post onto my blog site, my hat full of data. I've got a very simple post here, which has got in it shortcuts to some of the things we're going to be using in today's session. The first one here, the Excel file, that's the URL for it. So I'm going to right click on there and I'm going to copy the link. So that is an Excel file, but it's on the web. Okay, so when I come back into here, I want to go and get my data, but I'm not going to press the Excel button because that means Excel locally, or this Excel button. That means Excel local. I want it on the web. So I go to get data and I pick web. For those of you that have got Excel files stored in SharePoint or on OneDrive, Guy in a Cube have a brilliant video about how to get the URL for that. Emma, thank you for putting that link in the chat. So I put that into there. If you are putting in any links to an Excel file, make sure there's nothing after the .xlsx on the end there, and then we click OK. And give it a moment to connect. Now it comes up with an error, and this is a feature that's happening at the moment. But if I click OK, it then connects. So it's a minor bug we've got at the moment, but I'm expecting that one to be fixed in hopefully in one of the updates. So talking about updates, you should install Power BI if you can from the Microsoft Store, because then it'll update every month. If you install it by downloading it, you have to install it manually. Okay, so I'm going to go for my 3 tables. I've got a list of products. Okay, so these are the products that I'm interested in. I've got a list of shops. Okay, and I've got a sales table. On this date, this product in this shop sold this quantity, right? So my data is pretty clean, right? That looks pretty much okay. I'm reasonably happy with it. If it wasn't clean, you'd have to do some transformations on it. So if you're going to click, you could click transform data, and that will start you off another window, which of course on my PC is opened in the wrong window. So let me just drag that in. And this is called Power Query. And Power Query is an incredibly powerful way of transforming data. It's available behind Excel as well as behind Power BI, and is appearing in all sorts of places across the Microsoft ecosystem of handling data. So we can see here over on the right hand side, if you look, there is a applied steps, and that's showing how it gets to this data. So it starts by going to an Excel file, it navigates down to one of the sheets, and then decides on data types for all the columns. So that's what it's doing, okay? And I've got that for all three of my tables. If I go and look at my sales table here, I'm going to add one change to it all. You can see I've got rows. So what they do is every day, every product, every shop registers a quantity sold, and they also register zeros. So let's say I don't want those zeros. So I'm going to find a zero, right click on it, and there is a number filter. So I'm going to put in does not equal. And there you are, all the zeros have gone. Now, the reason I wanted to show you that step was I want to explain over here on the right hand side that it says filtered rows, and there's a little cogwheel. So I can click on that cogwheel, and there you are in the middle of my screen now. It's showing me what those changes are, what that filter is that's been applied in that step, and I could change it and I could add extra things. So if you want to do things to the raw data behind the scenes, Power Query is where that happens. So let's click close and apply. And it's at this point it brings in all the data. So in a second, up comes the box. There you are, apply query changes, and it's connecting up to the data and loading it in. And this is where, okay, let me see what I can do about whilst that's loading. Let's see if I can just quickly change the resolution of my screen, because that will, on the zooming in, it's the reply to the zooming in question we've got, because I will agree that is very small. So let me just quickly do a display setting, and let's zoom in a little bit. And that will do. I'm hoping, is that better, PG? Hope so. So what's happened there is I've got three tables come in. Okay, so we can see them over here on the right hand side in my fields, and I can expand them, and there are the fields listed on each of my tables. Over on the left hand side at the top here, so the view I'm in at the moment is the visuals view. Okay, so that is the report view at the top there. The next button down is the data view. So let's click onto there. And there we are, we get our data. So I can click on each table in turn, and I can show you the data that's available. Now these three data tables have relationships between them. Okay, so for those of you that know Excel and VLOOKUP, you would look up my sales table, that shop number there, you would look that up in the shops table and get the shop ID. Okay, so that's the relationship. In Power BI, we do that visually and graphically using the relationships or the model. Okay, and in here I've got my sales, and you can see it's already it's guessed the relationship for us here, that shop ID goes to the shop in sales, and that's right. It hasn't managed to do it for products. Okay, and that's because our product is called product here, and over here there isn't, it can't work it out. But that product ID is to relate to that product. So I click on one, doesn't matter which end you click on, and I drag it to drop it on top of this one here. And there we are. If I hover over that line, it highlights for me the rows that are there. Now, there was a recent update to Power BI, which put in a new model view. So it's updated this view. And because it's new, they offer it to you. Do you want to upgrade? It's a permanent upgrade. This is a brand new report, so we might as well upgrade. At some point, it's going to become compulsory on brand new reports. And there we are. It's changed the look a little bit to get the icons to be the icons in the top here. If you've got different data sources, you will get different icons in the top here. The other thing it does, if you've got a big complicated model, you can collapse these views to only show the fields that have got relationships involved, and that works quite well. Okay, so especially on when you've got big complicated models, you can have models here that have 20 or 30 tables on there. So this makes it simpler. So you've got to get the relationships right. So let's go back into our visual, into our visuals over here. Before you start dragging in visuals and how they work, okay, what I suggest is you create some measures. Okay, so measures are calculations, and we can give them names, which makes it a lot easier when you're building reports. So at the top here on the home ribbon, there's a new measure button. So if we click into here, one of the questions we wanted to answer was, what was the volume of the sales? Okay, so there you are. We've got measure equals. So I take that out, I delete that, and I put in the name of the measure. So that's I'm going to put it in as total volume, and then put in an equals. So what I want to add up is from the sales table, I want to add up the quantity column. So we're going to put, to add up, it's a function just the same as you get in Excel. And this language here is called DAX. So if you're looking for help on Google and things, you need to search for DAX, and that's DAX. So we want to sum, and as soon as you put in the open bracket, it offers you things that you could sum. I'm going to go to, and you get sales, and then in square brackets, the name of the column. So that's sales quantity. And then put in a bracket to close. So let's just press return on there. So that's giving me a measure, but it's not showing you any numbers yet. So let's put that into a visual. We're going to go for a really simple visual to begin with, which is a card. So to add a visual onto my report, in the visualizations page on the right here, you'll see there's a number of things. There's all sorts of charts and things to have a look at. It's worth having a good explore. But the one I'm going to go for has got a little 1, 2, 3 on it, and it's a card. And that puts in a card onto my report. And that card, so while I've got that card selected, so you've got little placeholders around it, the bottom half of the visualizations pane shows you what fields it wants. So it just wants a field. And I'm going to take the total volume and drag it into there. And there we are. Last year, we sold 20,000 items. Okay. But you want to know items of what and how. Sorry, items of which product. Okay. And we'll worry about shops in a moment. So let's create a chart. So I'm going to go for a stacked bar chart. Where it puts these boxes on the screen, though, by the way, appears to be kind of vaguely random. It's always wherever you don't want it to be. And I'm going to put the products down the side. So I'm going to go and find product name. And so that's gone on the axis. So I ticked it and it guessed where to put it. If it puts it in the wrong place, you can always drag it. And I'm going to go for total volume into values. And there we are. We've got a chart that's showing us all our products and how many of them we sold. It's sorted at the moment by the total volume. So I'm going to change that so that I want these products to be alphabetical. So I'm going to click on the 3 dots. And I'm going to go for sort by, and you see it's got the yellow bar next to total volume. I'm going to change that to be product name. And there we are, but it's in reverse order. So let's go back to those 3 dots again, and let's go sort ascending rather than descending. So there we are, champagne is at the top there. So there we are, there's our total volume, and there's a figure to show us the volume that's there. So that shows us and answers one of our questions, how many single roses. So if I click on single roses, it will just highlight that row, the others pale out, and my card gets filtered to match what I picked. So if we go for our grand chocky box, there we are, it filters down. If you want to pick multiples, you hold the control key down. So if I wanted to go for my chocolate boxes, we can add those up. And there we are. That shows up the 12,000, which is adding those together. To get rid of the filter, we click again, possibly twice, and there we are. The filter has gone. One of the things that on reports is to come up with, make sure they look pretty. Okay, it might seem like a really small part to it, but actually a well laid out report looking pretty. So we're going to look at some of the things we can do here. We can, on the view ribbon, we can pick a different theme. So there's all sorts of themes here that will give you different color combinations. Right? You also can, we're not going to do it today, but there are plenty of videos out there that will show you how. Customize your current theme and save it so that you can come up with a company brand. So I'm going to go back to the default, and the other nice trick to do, which was from a Chris Hamill post, I will update my blog post to include a link to it, is to put an image in the background, and you can create that image in PowerPoint. Okay, so with nothing selected, I'm going to go to the formatting, and I'm going to go for page background, and I'm going to say add an image. And here we are. Here's some images, and I'm going to go for my gift background because that fits my report. And it doesn't appear to begin with, but that's firstly because by default it's 100% transparent. And also my image fit is normal and the picture's too big. So I'm going to go for a fit. And there we are. I've got a background put in, nice, easy and quick. it's worth it in your organization to come up with some background slides to help people. Okay. So the other thing is to make sure that you've put in names and things that make some sense. So prod name doesn't really make sense in here. So a nice easy way to fix that is over the visualizations. So I've clicked on the chart, and where it says axis and it's got prod name, I can double click on that and I can rename it. So there we are, total volume by product. Another one to do is, another one we want to be able to do is we want to be able to slice by our shop. Okay, so I'm going to add a slicer as the final thing on this page, and we also need to add a title, and then we'll start talking about money. Okay, so that's our next part. So let's firstly add a slicer. So on the visualizations, we've got a slicer here, and that puts it in. Hey, it put it in the right place. Obviously it was listening. And I'm going to then go on to my shop name, and I'm going to tick that button, tick that box, and there we are. There's my list of my shops. Now, and that works. I can highlight, I can filter down to, there we go, my different products. My website needs filtering out because actually there's none of the sales have come through on that one. Okay, so there we are. We can filter by and we can unselect, and we get all of them again. If the people using this are going to be using it as touch screen, some of the tick lists sometimes don't work too well, but a nice quick fix is with your slicer selected, go to the formatting, and under general, okay, this is the not intuitive part, okay, under general, change the orientation from vertical to horizontal, because hey, that means buttons, doesn't it? There are lots of things they've got which are really, really good at what they do. There are some things that just are not, and that's one of them. But now I can pick my shop by clicking buttons. Okay. So last thing we're going to do on this page is we're going to put in a title and we're going to rename it. So let's put in a title. So on the insert ribbon at the top here, we're going to bring in a text box. And I recommend before you start typing, you work out the size of your text. And I'm going to put this in as my volume for 2020. The other trick with these kinds of things, okay, is all of the items on the page have an option to turn their background off so they can be transparent. And if you look in the visualizations, there's usually a background, and we can turn that off, and there you are, it becomes transparent. Just sometimes it's easier to lay things out, that things can overlap. And down the bottom here where it says page 1, we're going to double click and put in volume. So our other question, so that says quantity, but it doesn't say money. Okay, and if I go and have a look in my data, under my products, I've got a price. We've used the same price throughout the year, and I've got a cost of actually what does it cost to put that thing on the shelf. Okay, so we're going to use those, but they are for each of the sales. So if I can have a look at the sales table, it gives me a product number and it gives me a quantity. So I want to take the quantity and times it by the relevant product price. Okay, so that's what I want to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new measure. And let's zoom in again. And so this one is going to be total sales. So this time we're not going to use just the sum function. We're going to use a function called SumX. So as it says in that thing there, it adds up a formula done to every single row in a table. So SumX. And so the table that we want to do this to, so that's the first thing it wants, is it wants a table and an expression. So the table is for every row in sales. I would like you to do, firstly, to take the quantity. So if I start to type in QTY, do you see on the Q, it just gives me 3 options. I can immediately go and pick sales quantity. And we want to multiply that by the related. And as soon as you put in the related function, it can use the relationships and go and find things. So it can find out things about the products and it can find things out about the shop. So we're going to go for the products and there is the price. So that's created me a measure. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our report and I'm going to go for a new page. We'll give it a background in a moment, but let's put in a card. And we're going to put in the total sales. So it's quite nice the fact that it says total sales and it's got a number there, but it hasn't got a pound sign on it. So I want it to have a pound sign. So what I do is I click on the name of my measure so that the formula appears and also the measure tools ribbon appears. And in this measure tools, it asks you can do a number of things. One of them is, what format are we looking for? So we're going to go for it to be a currency. Okay, but typical Microsoft product, it assumes you mean America. And I possibly don't have my Power BI set up right to be pointing at the right place. So I'm going to drop that arrow down there. And it gives you the common ones that I could have gone for. So I could have gone the other way of doing this. And let's go for English. So British pounds. And it's showing me some decimal places. Well, when you're talking thousands, I don't think I really care about those 2 decimal places. So I can change the decimal places here to go down. To 0 decimal places. So there we are, we've got our total sales. Okay, now let's say we wanted to do that across our products. Now we've seen a bar chart on this one here. So we've seen that bar chart. I want to show you another chart, and it's not a pie chart. Okay, this is an alternative to a pie chart. Have we got a? No, so I'm just checking the questions. We haven't got any questions. That's fine. So I'm going to go for what's called a tree map. And a tree map one here is, let's go for putting in the total sales as our values. And the grouping I'm going to do into there, let's go for our product range. Okay, so they are, you can see the confectionery, flowers and alcohol. But then there's a detail section as well, and I'm going to put the product name in there. So there we are. We've got a report here that shows money-wise, your confectionery is the biggest, and it's then split up by these three. And then we've got the alcohol, and then we've got the flowers, which includes a dozen red roses and a single rose. So that's an alternative to a pie chart. I'm not going to go into the why pie charts aren't the most popular things. There's plenty of articles out there that will tell you. Okay. So, right, the next part. Okay. That's all very well. That's showing me the whole year. I want to show it for each month, because that was one of my questions in my PowerPoint. It was to show me the sales and show me the quantity over the year. In order to do that, you need to have a calendar. If you have a internal calendar to your organization in a data warehouse, or in one of your data sources in your data ecosystem, please use it. Please use it. Don't rewrite it. If you haven't got that, and I haven't in this situation, I'm going to write it. Okay. So what we're going to do is we are going to go back onto my page here. There is the background image, by the way, if anyone's interested. Now, this SQL BI are two Italians, Marco and Alberto, long-term MVPs, and they do amazing little short videos. They travel the world teaching, and if you have an employer who'll pay for you to go on one of their courses, go, please go. Once we can travel again, we will be able to travel again. If you get a chance to see these guys present, go see it. Okay, whichever event you can get to, or virtual. And what they've done here is they've given a very simple piece of code which we can copy. So this piece of code here, I'm going to copy, and this creates a table. So back into my Power BI, let's go to my data view, because that's where it'll show up, and we're going to go onto the home ribbon, and I'm going to go for a new table. And there we are. We get a format that's a table equals. Well, we're going to take that, delete that, and paste in what the guys have written. Right now, I don't just want you to copy and paste in code, but let's just, what it's doing is it works out the range of our dates, so a minimum year and a maximum year. Now they don't know the name in our database. Yeah, sorry, I'm chuckling because Fernando has just put up an alternative to what I've put up there, which I will mention in a moment. So this really simple. They're asking for a minimum year and a maximum year. Now I have got a table called sales, but I haven't got an order date. But what I can do is I can backspace, and there we are. I've got a sales date, so that could go in instead. I just need to take out the word order. So you need to know your data to know which is your date column that makes sense to have the minimum and maximum of. And then this section here creates you a table. I get a calendar year, a month name, and a month number. You can add more columns into here as you go, okay, as required. But this gets you going. This is a good starting place. Now, Fernando's put into chat an alternative, and the alternative he's put there is one that you can do in Power Query, and it works brilliantly. I'm looking at who he's put up. Radicad who have another amazing Power BI site, and they have lots of great information there. I didn't want to do that one, Fernando, purely because it's a rather long, complicated calculation. I can explain this one on introduction, but please, guys, do take a look at what Fernando has put up after this session. And I will add that link in as an alternative onto my post as well. So that's given me a calendar. And if you look, there is a row for every single day. And that's what a calendar has to have. And I've then got some calculated columns afterwards. So we're going to go back into our report. And I'm going to put in a column chart. And what we're going to put into there, okay, we are going to do it, and I'm going to show you. I've missed a step, but I'll show you what's wrong with it in a second. So we're going to put in the month name as the axis. There's going to be a couple of things wrong with this chart, but we'll fix them. And I'm going to put in the total sales as the values. And if you do this, okay, there you are. So ignore the order of the months. We'll come back to that. I've got the same sales every single month, and actually it's the total, because look, it's 181,000 or 182,000. There we go. That matches that. That is a classic. You've forgotten to do the relationships. Okay, so I'm going to claim I did it deliberately. So we go back into our relationships, and there we are. There's our date table, and it's related to nothing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to expand, and I'm going to take this date, and I'm going to drag, and I'm going to drop it onto that date there. Now, that should fix my table. Okay, so I've now got at least different values each month. They're not sorted right, but that's what we're about to fix. So let's try and sort that. Let's try and fix that sorting. I can click on the three dots, sort by month name. And that still doesn't look right. So let's go sort ascending, and let's see what it's done. And there we are. It has sorted the months, but it's sorted them alphabetically. Okay, so this is the one trick to understand. That's sorted alphabetically. I need to tell the month name column to not sort alphabetically, but to sort by which month number it is. So we're going to go back to our table in here, and I'm going to click on that month name column, and I'm going to go up to sort by, and I am going to put in sort by month number rather than month name. Okay, and that all doesn't appear to do anything here, but when I go back into my report, there we are, it's fixed our report to show. Now, what's nice in here is we can quickly see which products are how they're selling over the year. So my grand chocky box, there we go, it highlights the peak. So obviously it was popular for Valentine's Day and it was popular for Mother's Day. Whereas champagne wasn't promoted in these times of the year. It was sold kind of during the year, but there we are, Christmas and New Year, we've got a 65,000. So we can go through and click and filter by using visuals. Okay, you could also click on to December, and there you are, you can see highlighted in there as to which parts. So I'm just having a quick look at the questions. And PG's question was, a calendar spanning 20 years, performance perspective, would you recommend I create the table in Excel and copy it into a new table in Power BI, or create it in Power Query, or create it in DAX? Okay, if you are looking for a calendar of that length, although 20 years sounds like a huge table, that is only that's 8,000 rows of data. So that's not too horrific. My gut reaction is Power Query, because actually it is a large table, and Fernando's very kind link that he's put above your question is a good one. Or there are other ones which are Radicards solves everything. Okay, if you want a simpler version of that, there are alternatives out there. I'm trying to think of who I know who's done one. The BI accountant, I think, if you search for him, he's done it as well. My question is it the challenge of wherever you're going to create it, is that 20 years dynamic? So in a year's time, does it need to move a year? So if that's the case, you need to work out how you're going to keep that being dynamic. This one will move with the sales. You can get the Power Query to do it. You just need to make sure it's included, and how you're going to put the start year and the end year. So is your 20 years always wanting to move forwards as time progresses? So you just need to work that out. Okay. And PG, if you can't find good answers to that, nab me on LinkedIn or Twitter, and I'll be perfectly happy to help you out on that one. No problem at all. So we've got our the important point I want to get there about your calendar is one extra thing we need to do. One extra thing I need to do in a second on this one as well is sort your month names. So your text columns, make sure you know what order you want them sorted in. And that's a trick to do on all tables in Power BI if you've got a text column. High, medium, low is not alphabetical. Okay, all those kinds of questions of sorting, this is how you do it. You have a number column that does the right sort. The other thing is, this is a date table, and so to make Power BI understand it's a date table and treat it the most efficiently, especially if you're looking at a 20-year table, is to, whilst you've got your table selected, okay, there's a table tools ribbon, mark it as the date table. So you can click as mark as date table, and it'll ask you which is your date column. I've only got one. And click OK. And you can tell if somebody has done that by there's a little symbol next to the date in your calendar table. So that's how you can tell that a table has been marked as a date table. And Power BI knows to treat that slightly differently, and it will index it, etc. in a good way to work with tables. And also when you add relationships, it stops behind the scenes it creating temporary date tables for you, which will make your model huge. So Guy in a Cube, who run a Patrick and Adam run a Power BI YouTube channel. They both work for Microsoft, but they do the YouTube channel in their own time, and they do all sorts of things. That I don't think Adam sleeps. He does so much stuff and so much superb production. They have a really good video about making your models smaller, especially if you're looking at 20 years of calendar. I'm assuming you've got 20 years of transactions to handle in there as well, of some sort. One option I highly recommend, and this is the only option I'm going to take you guys in to see. But I went to File, I went to Options and Settings, and then I click onto Options. And eventually it comes up. So, Time Intelligence. Untick that box. Okay, and that will do it for new files. So it will stop creating its own hidden mini calendar tables for every date column in your model. Okay, so untick that. And if you've got it on your current file, untick it there. But be aware, if you've made use of that Time Intelligence, you might have some issues. Okay, So if you do, go and find out where those issues are. If you can't resolve them, come find me and I will, it'll prompt me to write a proper blog post on it. So that was data load, auto date time for new files, turn it off. We're trying to get Microsoft to turn it off permanently, but it's one of the defaults that's normally there. So I have, let's have a look at my report. I have put in a chart, show me my years. I've got the way of filtering it using this tree map. I've got my total sales. The last thing we had was I wanted to do a the profit margin. Okay, so we're going to do one more measure. So I'm going to put in a new measure. So let's work out the total costs. Okay, so that's going to be my next one that I create before I can do my profit margin. Now I deliberately break it down into steps because it makes it easier. So my total cost is going to be almost identical to my total sales. So we're going to use SumX. And we're going to put into here, it's the sales table that we're working with. And the expression of what we want to add up is going to be the quantity times, and then we're going to use the related function again. And I'm going to go for the cost column. And that needs another bracket in there as well. So the other, so we're going to add another new measure, which is going to be the profit margin. So I'm going to put a percentage in there just so that I remember. Thank you, Fernando. You're gonna do Emma out of a job. But hey, can I book you for any other sessions I have to do? So profit margin percentage. So we're going to go for, in brackets. So if I put in a square bracket, it then gives me the list of all the measures I've previously written. So I can go for total sales minus my total costs divided by, and by the way, I put lots of spaces in to try and make it clearer. It makes no difference to how it performs. And divided by the total costs. I think that's how you do margin percentage. But I'm no financier. So if I put in a data card, sorry, a card there, and let's put that up there. Right, we can put into there our new measure that we've just created. Now, if you can't find it, because they scatter across the tables unless you're very careful where you put them, I'll show you how to move one in a second. But if I start typing margin at the top there, see it finds it for me, and I can select it. But look, we forgot to make it a percentage. So let's click on the name there and click on the percentage button. And there we are, we get a percentage, and you can choose how many decimal places you would like to see. So we've done that part, we've done that part. So the one thing I wanted to show you, we've created a number of measures. If you've got a measure, and it'll appear in whichever table you had selected at the time, but on the measure tools ribbon, there is a where do you want the home table to be? Okay, I suggest you put them all in places that make sense. So currently I've got them in products, so I'm actually going to move them all into products, but possibly able to put it in sales. You're just going to work out where people expect it to be, and you'll see on the right hand side here it moves. So I could take that total costs and also put it into products. And there are some people that will create a query just to put the measures in. But there's lots of mixed ideas about whether that's a good idea or not. So let's put a background in, and then we're going to publish. Are there any more questions? Just while I am doing this page background, or anything that you'd like me to do that I haven't done so far, because for once I'm almost on time. I've just worked out the one thing I want to do. I want to show you one more thing. One thing is that to go through, so that little data card overlaps with that image, but as I showed you before, we can just take off the background and I can work out which parts of that I want to do. So just make it so that it works and looks right for you. The other part was, so this profit margin, how does my profit margin go over the year? So if I take this one here and I'm going to change this chart, there are a number of charts up here to look at, but I'm going to change this chart to be a line and stacked chart. So it still looks the same, but now in my visualizations fields, I've got align values. So I'm going to bring in my profit margin onto my line values. And there you are, it gives us a secondary axis and it gives us values, our sales values on the left. So you get the two axes. When it comes to, if you don't like those colors, we can always come into our formatting, and there's lots of things you can change in here, but there's data colors. So there we are, I've got my profit margin and I've got my default color. So we could change that to be, hey, let's go for pink, just to be different, to show in our reports. Okay, and you can make it work. The other trick you can do is if you've got things, especially like this, that looks that's the right size and everything I want, I can copy that. And when you paste onto a new page, it'll put it in exactly the same place. So that helps in making your report have a consistent look. I'm slightly bugged by the fact this thing, oh, there you are, it's above the blue line now. I feel a bit better. So once you're happy, and let's just change this one to be the name of it. So once you're happy with your reports, make sure that your filters are set to the default you want them to be. Save. We should have saved a while ago. Well, it's sales 2020. And I am going to publish. So when you go to publish to the service, now is not the time, Power BI, to crash. When you go to publish to the service, you need to be logged in. So it might prompt you for a login there. If you've never used Power BI before, you don't have to have a license. You don't have to have a pro license. It might offer you a trial pro license, which you can take up, but you don't have to. Okay, everybody has a My Workspace that they can publish to, and that will. But you can't share from My Workspace to anybody else. Okay. So now it asks you where you want to. So if you don't have a license, all you'll see is My Workspace. If you do have a license and you've been given access to different workspaces, you will see them listed here. So I'm going to go to Alpha, click Select. And off it goes to put that in there. And I'm going to go to my browser and just quickly open it in here because I think I can open it. I'll make sure that I'm in the right tenancy. The joys of being a consultant is you have too many tenancies. Yep, I'm in the right one. And this will give me a chance to show you how other people will find your reports. So if I scroll down, it's not going to show it to me. If I go to all apps, there is Power BI. Oh, Roger, you have asked a complicated question. Is there a best practice on how to handle many-to-many relationships? Would it be best? So many-to-many relationships are complicated. I would using Power Query try to work out a table to in between that. Okay. And if you're looking for advice on that particular one, I would go and have a look at the SQL BI guys, the SQL BI site. They're going to give you ideas of how to handle those issues. They're going to have some really good advice on how to handle many-to-many. And it does depend on what your data is. So on that one, the many element of the tables, so you need to work out a way of doing that relationship. And if you do it in Power BI, when you drag to do that relationship, you're going to find it's going to give you warnings. Wow, this is not plain ball. Let's just see if that link will work instead. It's going weird. Oh, there we go. Is Power BI going to come up before that one? Let's see which one wins. So I would, Roddy, I would go to look at SQL BI guys and see if they've got a suitable solution for you. But many-to-many, I would work out a table in between the two. Fernando, do you recommend inserting a filter for the calendar year? Suggest it to every January the 1st. Okay, let me come back to that one. And yes, as Fernando's put it there, best practice not to use many-to-many. He is totally right. And yeah, if you put a great link there down to SQL BI. So if you go into Power BI for the first time, this is what you get to see. There's a button here that shows me my workspaces, and there is Alpha. Right? And I called my report Sales 2020. So if I scroll down, there is Sales 2020. Wow, Power BI is not plain ball. And that's where you would click, but I've already loaded it. So here it is. And here's my report. OK, do make sure you go and look at what it's going to look like to your users. OK, so does it actually work on the screen? If you look down the left here, I always forget to name pages. So I always end up with page 1, 2, 3 down the side. It looks better if people can click on names that make some sense. The filters pane is open. And that's because when I saved it, the filters pane was open. If you minimize it in Power BI, so if I had minimized that in Power BI, in the report, it would open minimized. OK, so you've got to know these filters as the tweaks you need to do before you publish. Patrick has done a really good video on the things you should do before you publish. OK, so that's Patrick as in Guy in the Cube. He's done it as well. If you scroll up, Fernando has put that link up there about 10 minutes ago. OK, I will put those links. I'll put all the links we've got today into my blog. How can I reach out to you? OK, if you have a question. So going back to my contact details, I'm Laura GB on Twitter. or on LinkedIn, I'm Laura Graham Brown. Okay. So we've managed to create a report. We've brought in data. We've put in relationships. I've created measures. Now, I know you don't have to create the measures I have created today. You can get away with not creating them, but I highly recommend creating them so that your total volume has a nice label. You don't have to rename things too much. Have a play. Okay, so let me just go and find my elephants. Best creatures there are, in my opinion. So let's go down to the next slide. So some of the things I've mentioned here, Gynacube, there's Pat. It only shows Patrick. Oh well, that's the screenshot I got. And that one only shows, I think that's Alberto. The Italians, I refer to as Italians. They are the DAX gurus. If you want to buy a book, okay, the only 2 books I have bought this year is, oh, thank you, Emma, for putting the link in the chat. The only 2 books I have bought this year are Marco and Alberto's. I put the definitive guide to DAX and their new DAX patterns book. Okay, they are both awesome books. The patterns book, actually, all of the resources are available online. You don't have to buy the book, but I quite like books. And that one on the right, Hatful of Data, that is me. I've got a YouTube channel and also my blog. They link to each other. Also, that link there and that QR code will take you to some brilliant paths on the Microsoft site to take you through learning Power BI. There is lots out there to help you learn. Another resource that was mentioned and I've not put a link up to is RadaCAD, BI Accountant, and the backgrounds that I showed you and how to create those is Alluring BI. But I will update my blog post within the next hour, and I will Twitter it out and put it in LinkedIn and put things out there so that you guys can find them. I hope you've enjoyed the session. Are there any more questions before we see? Look, Emma, I've managed to only be 10 minutes late. I'm normally a lot later than this. I talk too much. Any other questions, guys? A slicer for the year. Sorry, my apologies, Fernando. My slicer for the year. Let me just quickly move you back into Power BI. That's the end of the slideshow. Let me just quickly go back into Power BI. Putting a slicer in for the year. There are lots of different ways to do it. The easiest way to do it is if you were putting in a slicer. It's not going to have more than 1 year in there, unfortunately, because my calendar's only 1 year. But if I bring in a slicer for the calendar year, yeah, that's a challenge to get it to always go to this year. Another way to do it is to change this slicer. Oh, wait a minute. Is to not put the year in there, but to put a date. To put a date in there instead. Let's lose that. And then change this slicer to a relative date, because then I can put into there this year. Okay, so that, oh, that doesn't put it into this year. I wanted to put it into last year. And I don't pick years, I pick calendar years. So that wouldn't have to be updated. Okay. Does that answer your question? I'm hoping it does, Fernando. Reach out to me if that doesn't answer your question. Okay, so that wouldn't have to be updated. That would update as we rolled forward into next year. That would filter to just show the last year. Okay, so that's not showing very well. Let's put that like that. Okay, guys, thank you. I hope you've enjoyed the overview, and I will put up more resources. Take care, guys.